Hi, thank you very much all for coming. One thing that I've really appreciated about Java over the past years is that we've been moving away from using XML files for configuring and registering framework artifacts and so on. And we're moving towards more and more even towards annotations, which means that all your code and everything around it, all the registration information around it, is found inside of the Java file, which means you work within one language, within one file. You don't have to switch contexts to different files and so on. Now with HTML5, it seems that we're back to where we were before in a worse situation because we're working with HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and if we're using Java Backend, also with Java. The question then becomes, how can one efficiently work with all of those different files in such a way that they're integrated with each other and almost behave as if they were one construct? And the answer to that is to use the right tools. In NetBeans IDE 7.3, we have included a number of tools, templates, tips and tricks, and wizards, as you're going to see, to simplify the integration between those different types of files and the way of working with those files in an intuitive and logical way. That's really the focus of what I want to show in the next 15 minutes, and the clock is ticking, so I'm going to have to move quite fast. First of all, one can create new, what are called HTML5 applications. When you do so, you can specify that you want to use a particular template. So there's a number of templates out there online, Twitter Bootstrap, and so on, that you can use right out of the box. Or don't, and include one of many or several of many of the JavaScript libraries that are out there. But what is also interesting is that we have a number of HTML5 sample projects. And if you go online and you look for JavaScript tutorials, you'll find, for example, the wine cellar tutorial, or you'll find the jQuery mobile tutorial. These are online tutorials, these are open sourced, and we've contacted the people behind those different tutorials and the source code behind them, and said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could integrate your stuff into NetBeans so that the source code of your tutorials are directly available to anyone working with them. And so these common established samples are in here. So I'm going to start by just creating one of these. And what we have here, let's close this project, is a new application. Contains CSS, contains JavaScript, contains HTML. We can add very easily new JavaScript libraries to this. So there's a long list of JavaScript libraries available. We can run it in a browser. We can run it in an external browser. So various items can be configured here. Let's decide to run this in the Chrome browser. So we deploy the application, and here we see it. And what is interesting is what you see here at the top, which is an indication that we have installed in here the NetBeans plugin for Chrome. So we are integrating directly with Chrome, which gives us, for example, the possibility to choose different resolutions. So let's say we're creating an application for smartphone in portrait. Okay, there we go. That's the size that we want to have. Let's make the IDE fit next to it, more or less. Make it a bit smaller. So there we go. Now, a typical problem you have, even before we look at the different editors that are available, is that you kind of wonder to yourself, okay, so here I have my application in the browser, but where are these items defined in my IDE? And for that reason, the Chrome plugin includes inspect in NetBeans mode. And now I can select items, for example, as you see these rabbits here, or these paragraphs, and see where they are defined in the CSS inside the IDE. I'm going to also open the NetBeans navigator, which when I select different items, this shows me the entire live DOM tree. So not just the static HTML, but also the JavaScript. I can now click on these items. So let's say here is my rabbit, and here's a long list of the rendered HTML. I can move up and down this list, and then see where these are found in my browser, except having a very good example of that here. So here is the entire item selected. Here's the images selected within it. Selecting something larger, something even larger. Not seeing from this end as items being selected at the moment. Selecting a particular image, let's say we want this image to not be what it currently is. So kind of a resolution problem here, which is 50 by 50. Let's say we want it to be somewhat larger. So I'm pressing the up arrow, and you can see as I do so that the images change. I'm not saving at all. I'm just pressing the up arrow, and as I do so, the images change in size. What's also cool, in the same vein, is that I can jump from here, from right where I am, to the source. So now I'm in the CSS3 editor. You see here all the CSS elements in the view, but in the editor itself, I can see here my two, the width and the height. Let's change 101 to 11. Without saving, immediately I see the response in the browser. So this kind of integration really speeds up development a lot, because now you can immediately find where something is defined, change things on the fly, not need to save, quickly check whether things are working as you would want, and continue working. There's also integrated a embedded browser. So if we go to web and the web browser, this is now deployed to Chromium. Instead, we can deploy it to the embedded browser inside NetBeans, which is based on something strange happened there. Like we crashed. Bearing in mind this is an RC release that I'm running here, not a final release. Deploying this into the embedded browser, crash again. I can tell you that this works perfectly when you're sitting in your hotel room. Okay, so we have this application. The cool thing, once we have this running again in our Chromium browser, we run it again. Okay, here it is again. We switch to the NetBeans inspection mode again. We select items again. Once we have this running, what we can also do, because this automatically starts up in debug mode. So if I go into my JavaScript editor, which is based on the modified pre-release version of Nashorn, which we use for the parsing part of the JavaScript editor, I can here set a breakpoint. So here's a breakpoint. Then refresh the browser, and now I can step through my JavaScript. So JavaScript debugger, JavaScript editor, ability to synchronize between the editor on the one hand and the browser on the other. So quickly to continue, and very cool tutorials are out there by David Geary about HTML5 game development. And at the end of this particular tutorial, you get a zip file. So I downloaded the zip file, unzipped it, and this is what it looks like in my file system. So images, JavaScript, HTML. Okay, so I can go inside NetBeans and I can say HTML5 application with existing sources, and there is no requirement for what those sources consist of. I can go straight to my unzipped folder from the download, say finish, and now I have exactly what I've integrated my application into NetBeans. I can immediately start using it. So select the file, click OK. Again, run the application into Chrome, run the application, and see when it's deployed. Moment to deploy. So again, we can switch between this and between NetBeans once this application is actually up. So if you have your own source code, you can open that into NetBeans and use all this functionality too. The final thing I wanted to show is that let's say you have a Java backend. So here I have, this is all generated from wizards and templates and so on. I selected, there's a template for this called RESTful Web Services from Database. So you point to a database, the JPA entities are created, the RESTful Web Services are created, and everything's good to go. So now you think, okay, cool, I have this running, and I have it running because here is Glassfish, and in my browser, so here's the JSON payload. So now we want to integrate this into an HTML5 application. So we create a new application, customer RESTful client. Again, you can select various templates as a starting point, click Finish, and now we can create a RESTful JavaScript client. And you can see here that a backbone client is going to be created. And what we want to do in the future is have the possibility of using other JavaScript clients. So you could imagine a particular AngularJS library. So select a particular RESTful web service, specify the folder where you want this to be generated into, and you're good to go. So we'll call this customers, and finish. And now the JavaScript libraries are added to the project. We have the REST client, so here it is. And this is a backbone, standard backbone file. We have an HTML file. Let's run this. Okay, I'm not going to do it this way. Run the application inside Chrome again. This is the index file. And this is the customers file. So here we have a complete CRUD application. So this is this customers file making use of the REST client in the background, which connects to the service, following the backbone way of doing so. We have a complete CRUD application. So we can edit this directly in here, create new items, and so on. Also, again, let's set inspect in NetBeans mode. We'll make this a bit smaller, not portrait, tablet portrait, but smartphone portrait. Click on items in here. Okay, so now you can actually see what I was trying to show earlier on. As I click on items, you can see them being selected in the browser. Okay, there, and there, and there. And if I'm on this side, you can see that as I select a different node in the navigator, the browser updates to show what I'm currently selecting. And I don't even need to select. I can hover over it with my mouse and see where these different TDs are found in my browser. Okay, so in addition to that, the HTML support, so this, what you see here is an HTML5 editor, so we have code completion for all the new HTML5 elements. This is the JavaScript editor with the Nashorn parser underneath it, and we have a CSS3 editor as well. So together, all of these tools put you in a perfect spot to work in a coherent way in the new HTML5 world, and even integrate with Java backends. And with 1 minute to go, that's my story. Are there any questions in the last minute that we have? Yes? I can't hear. Maybe you should get...
Oh, okay. So in the first example where you selected the picture and found it in the CSS, does that support responsive web design CSS as well? with the viewport size, and does it find the correct picture?
Yes.
CSS in responsive web design as well?
It's using WebKit, the WebKit API underneath it for the communication between Chrome and NetBeans, and the embedded browser in NetBeans also has that embedded using WebKit. And in the future, we want to support Safari, because Safari is also based on WebKit. So via WebKit, we get access to all of this information. So thank you very much for attending, and NetBeans provides all the HTML5 tools you need. Thank you very much.